Hey, Tom here, Flip Anything, uh, Flip Anything USA. So I'm fixing to fly out of town here in a minute, and I figure I'm going to be doing some live streaming. And I bought these last couple properties, and I know more of you guys want to hear more about contracts and how to make deals and stuff like that. I've been getting a lot of comments and people asking these kinds of questions, anyways. And so that's what I'm going to try to do right now a little bit. Uh, I'm also learning how to use this stream, and well, I guess I'm not going to have it today. I was going to maybe take questions, but I'll try to get this set up. And I may do some of this stuff in the morning the next couple days, may do it in the evening. Right now, I'm not doing it too well as far as announcing what's happening, and trying to get the contrast a little bit here. So, I know everybody wants to, really. I go to title this thing and I say, do I want to call it how to write contracts, how to write this, but really we're talking about deal making, really more than anything. You don't want a course in just real estate. You can go get a license and that sort of thing, but what I do and the lifestyle I have and the money I've made, it's really not about knowing a lot about real estate. It's really just about deal making and knowing a good deal when you see one. And really, I said that from the very first video. You got to take the time to really just get your knowledge base, and the easiest thing to do is learn about the area that you're in all the time, and which is, I assume, is your home and or your work and in between. Now for me, that's what it's always been. I've always been a really hard worker, and whether I'm working at home or whether I'm working at my place of business. And so and then of course I cover everywhere in between. And like I've been saying, I'm going to fly a drone here from here to work, and we'll just look at everything that I bought from between home and around home and in between all the way to the end. And good, MJ, glad to see you here. So I guess what I want to tell you is let's talk about writing contracts real quick. So you can write it on a blank sheet of paper. You just write your own. The elements are buyer, seller, price, terms, and there's no rules. You can write whatever. You can make this a 6-month escrow, a 1-year escrow, meaning a 1-year time frame before you buy it. You can have certain contingencies in there that you need to, always the number one contingency you must have is clear title. You're not going to commit to buying something without having free, clear title. Make sure there's no encumbrances and liens, and you always want to get title insurance. I've actually almost had to sue a title company one time because they insured a deal that I bought, and then they screwed up, and somebody didn't get paid and somebody got overpaid. But so I know, ideally I think everybody wants to kind of get where I'm at. Lots of rentals, lots of income coming in, and then you just got to worry about keeping your rentals full, and then you got the money, then you take the money and you want to reinvest it, of course. And it's a great place to be, and it's a problem that I hope all of you will have, because it's not a big problem, it's a good problem. So let's talk about deal making. So finding deals, I tell you, keep your eyes open, call every for sale sign, try to be the first one there. These last 2 deals I bought, 3 deals. One I bought just before I started this blog. I bought a house that was probably worth $249. I bought it for $203. Started at $195, and then all of a sudden it was a little firestorm, but I did what I could to kill the competition, and I got it. And I did that again here just this last week on this one I called the 3-day auction deal. It's all about being there first, or right in the beginning. And you want to do is just, man, let's close this deal. And incentivized to make this deal right now. And you might have to create a sense of urgency, like I'm leaving town, which in this case it was really true. I am going on vacation, so I was creating the sense of urgency that, look, I'm leaving town. I want to close this deal. And like I said, they started the bidding at 100. I know it would have bid on up to probably 220 at least. But what I did is instead of, playing this game 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. I just said, while these guys are at 100, 110, I came in and said 160. Pull the sign. Let's close the deal now. And they went for it. Thank God, because in an hour or two, it would have been in the 200s. And so, or by the end of that day, it would have for sure. So, and it hadn't even hit the MLS, okay? It hadn't even hit the MLS, but it was going to hit the MLS. So, that's the other thing. When you see a sign on a property, that's like, a lot of people put it on the MLS, then they put their sign in, but a lot of times the sign hits first. That's what agents do. They put the sign in, they tell their client, hey, I'm going to put it on the MLS, but they put the sign in first because they're hoping that somebody calls and they get both sides of the deal. Meaning, once they put a sign in, if another agent brings an offer and it's accepted, they're going to split the commission. But if they put the sign in there and a seller or a buyer calls them directly, then they can get both sides of the commission, which as a realtor, that's what you want. You want to make twice as much money if you can. So be there first. Don't hesitate. You see a sign, you stop, you write it down, you call right then and there. Don't mess around. Don't screw around. If you just hesitate, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it. I guarantee it. And I can tell you there's things, I always try to be first, but I'm not always first. Things get by me too. But I tell you, it's not from lack of effort. I stop. If I see one of those signs on the main drag pointing to an estate sale, which I actually just did this the other day. I don't think I made a video and hadn't printed it yet, but I saw one said estate sale. This is right after I just handed the cashier's check over to title company for this other deal. And I see this estate sale, and I'm going, well, when I see an estate sale, I assume I'm going to see a garage and people selling out the stuff that's in the house. But they usually do that because the house is going to sell next. And that's what I did. I stopped in, and sure enough, I walked right through all the tables and all the junk that's in the yard that they're selling. I actually bought a Sunbeam mixer, an old beautiful chrome Sunbeam mixer, by the way. It was for $20. But anyways, I walked on in, and I said, hey, what about the real estate? And they said, yeah, we're going to sell it too. And I said, well, I want to buy it. I actually own the house. I'd say I own so much property. I actually own the house across the street from it, and I own 5 others in the same neighborhood. And I owned as many as 7 in that neighborhood before. But now I'm down to 5. I'd flipped a couple of them. So, and I bet on this single family real estate. I hold properties, but man, houses, and they are slow to appreciate. Right now they're in a fast appreciating cycle. Things kind of get hot in an area when the place is really hot. That's the time to buy, and let it, maybe if you want to hold on a little bit. I don't like to speculate much, but I've held properties because I want it for my kids. That's all. And sometimes I'll buy more than one property next to each other. If they're large lots, I know that I can do a lot line adjustment, and I can put another house in between the 2 that I bought. So that's another possibility. The thing is, people say, should I do houses? Or gee, I really want to get into commercial flipping. Look, you can flip anything. Flip anything. Don't worry about it being specifically commercial. Houses, people feel warm and fuzzy about houses. Don't. In fact, it's funny. Grant Cardone, I never really listened to the guy. I caught one of his programs said, his first property, and he was talking about something he bought in Houston. And I was looking, and I thought, oh yeah, hey, this guy's legit. I don't know him, but a lot of these guys I don't think are so legit. But Grant Cardone, he seems like the real deal. But he was talking about his first property he bought, and he held it for a year, and he sold it for the same price, and he was scared, and he couldn't afford it, and I didn't have that problem, but on my first one, but things happen. But anyhow, I like the guy's story, what I'd heard so far, and Grant Cardone, he seems like he's all right. Anyways, so back to making the deals. The main thing is you gotta be there first, okay? And that's half of it. It doesn't matter. You could hear about it. Somebody tell you about it. It could be a sign. It could be if you're digging through Craigslist and looking Craigslist. Craigslist, you'll see. That's how I rent all my property. I rent all my property through Craigslist. I don't advertise anything. It's free. I put it in there. It's kind of like under Craigslist. It's like properties that are for sale or lease. They're commercial. They're houses. They're not very defined. So you got to kind of dig through there, which is kind of fun. It's kind of like a treasure hunt. You might find something that's for sale that nobody knows about too. And also that, for that matter, it goes for equipment and tools and things of value. And I do that too. I'll go into tools and equipment, and I'll go to the highest dollar items first, and I start going down from the most expensive stuff down. I don't want to, man. And you know, I bought a beautiful half-inch thick steel table, probably 10 by 5, you know, $1,000 worth of steel there, and somebody made it. It was a beautiful table, and I bought it for like $500-600. You know, I have all kinds of steel tools, machines, lathes, mills, welders, all, you know, laser cutters, all kinds of stuff. So I like that stuff. But anyways, my point is, I could have just flipped the table and made $500 too, and you can too. So don't, you know, if you don't have a big budget, or even look at, I still buy and sell tools. I'll still go in, and if I see something that's worth $2,000-3,000, I can buy for $1,000, and it's not too heavy and it doesn't require a big truck. I'll buy it. And but it's you know, and I think that you'll get a sense of what's valuable. The more you do this, the more you flip things, the more you'll kind of have kind of a sixth sense when you go, wow, you know what? This looks like quality. This looks expensive, and you'll be able to discern that, hey, this is valuable. And then, you know, it's like, you know, sometimes like this lake house. You know, I didn't have to see it to tell the realtor, hey, I'll take it. I'm going to buy it, and because I just knew, hey, that's not too far out of town. That 80 grand is cheap, and you know, and now as soon as I said I'll take it, that stopped him from showing it to anybody else. He's got a prospect. He's got a lead. And that's something in business we do too. You know, like I'll create a new product. You know, I have different businesses, but one particular, I manufacture and make things. And sometimes I'll see a product that maybe I'm working on or I want to make, and then I'll see a competitor's making something, and he's already got his to market. So what do? I announce that I'm about to release something almost exactly the same. So it puts the brakes on the purchases of people buying my competitor's product, and now they're waiting to see what I've got. And then mine comes out, then they can compare, and then they buy the best one, which is great. But my point is about putting the brakes on. Like I said, it puts the brakes on them buying my competitor's product. Well, same thing. When I tell an agent, hey, I'll take it, it puts the brakes on him sticking it under the nose of my competition in my little real estate empire competition. So, you know, but anyhow, started by talking about writing contracts. I'm jumping all over the place a little bit here, but it's all relevant. I know everybody wants to, you want to know how to find deals, and you want to know how to make deals, but half of it is being there first. If you're not there first, somebody else is going to steal it from you. So just keep your eyes open. If a house looks like it's in disrepair, broken windows, man, go bang on the door. Find out who owns it. Look up the records if you have to, and go find out who owns it. Write a letter or look up in the phone book and find out who owns it, because somebody else is going to be working on it. If I'm in the neighborhood, I'm already trying to figure it out myself. So get on it and get it, number one. And then as far as writing contracts, don't be intimidated by contracts. In fact, I just got a phone with my lawyer a little bit ago. I wanted him to reconfirm something. A lot of times, you know, and I even tell you, you know, when you write a contract, you can write and or assigns. You really don't need to do that. You can write it just, you're buying it in your name. You can still assign that contract. All contracts are basically, and I'm just repeating what my lawyer told me, but it's been my understanding. I always write and or assigns because it makes me feel comfortable. But if I think that's going to spook the buyer that I'm buying, if I write and or assigns and he thinks, oh, you're going to flip this over to somebody, okay, then don't write it. Just buy it in your name, because my understanding is, and I would bank on this, is it's assignable unless it states that it is not in the contract. In other words, they call that in, like a note is assignable. Like if you're carrying a note and, you know, somebody else can buy that property and assume that note unless you put in an alienation clause. And that's basically a clause that says this is not assignable. If the property changes hands, I'm calling the note all due and payable. So, and those didn't used to be in the old days. Almost every contract was written without an alienation clause, so people could assume existing loans right and left. Of course, lenders got tired of that because pretty soon they found themselves foreclosing on somebody that they wouldn't have given the loan to originally. So anyhow, so back to contracts. you're just, you can use an existing contract, no problem. But I mean, I prefer as simple as possible. You know, show me the names of the seller, the buyer. A blank for a buyer and seller, a blank for the price, and then a blank for the terms, and then give me a little, obviously, title, and then you'll have basically the terms of, the actual terms, meaning, escrow period to be 60 days or 90 days or 30 days or whatever. You can, have that in there, but it's very basic stuff that you need to create a contract. So half the time, I just go into Word and I type it. I just write it up on the spot, or my handwritten. I'll write buyer, seller, terms, price, right, subject to clear title report, or buyer gets to, approve the title. And then I'll go down, and then under special provisions. Now that's what's beautiful about writing your own contracts, is there's no rules. You can create any terms you want. You can make them as crazy, or, they might be something that somebody'd never go for. You might have an 18-month escrow. You might have a deal that says I get to rent it for the next 18 months and buy it on the 18th month. You can create it any way you want it. As long as the seller agrees, then you can make a deal. So just keep that in mind. I got a plane to catch here pretty soon, so I'm going to cut this off pretty soon. But if anybody's got a question, go ahead and write it. And I'll see it here on the pop-up. But I'm going to close out here pretty quick. But I guess that's the main thing. And when I get back, I'm going to get refreshed here from my vacation. I'm going to wrap up these two houses. I got to put tile in the lake house, and I'm going to have to replace the roof and put tile in this new home I just bought. But I plan on taking time and kind of showing you guys more of an illustrated contract. Not that it's that important, but I think you understand. But just don't be so fearful. You can't win the lottery unless you buy a ticket, and you don't want to jump into anything without, preparing yourself and doing your due diligence and making sure that you're buying something, under market, because you don't want to go in there. Okay, probably the strangest question ever been asked, but have you ever flipped a contract on anything? I just missed the last part of it. But yes, I have flipped contracts. I didn't get to read the very last line. If you want to hit send again, I'll look at it again. But this thing comes up and then it fades away. I'm dealing with an iPhone here, not a lot of real estate on the screen. So, but yeah, if I understood the question, yeah, I flipped contracts. In other words, I had one that was really painful. That I made a deal on a house to buy, and but it was a good deal. And then I signed the contract, and the guy gave me $10,000, and he took my position on it. And I had a long contract. It was like a 6-month close on this escrow. So after I flipped him the contract, or I did an assignment, I signed the contract to him. Okay, on contracts other than houses or buildings. That's interesting. Let me think about that. I've done it on commercial. I've done it on real estate, so it doesn't matter what kind. I've done it on houses, done it on apartment building before. I've done it on commercial industrial building before. But I don't know what else I'd have a contract other than real estate. I can't say I've flipped any other kind of contract. I don't use the contract to buy anything other than real estate. So no. But if you're talking about real estate, yeah, I've done it on just about every kind of real estate. It doesn't really matter. It can be, it's property. It doesn't matter. In the end, we're talking about a piece of land with a building on it. Okay, you helped me negotiate a concrete driveway for a property I recently bought. Oh, well, glad to hear that. Okay, Kristen, that was your question, yeah. So yeah, you can do it on apartment buildings too, Kristen. I've done that. And apartments, I've got these apartment buildings I bought for $10,000 a unit. And that was a steal. I bought it for $10,000 a unit. I sold them for $55,000 a unit. So I probably made roughly 40,000 times 58. I guess I probably made about $2.5 million between those three sets of buildings. But so that was just flipping them. But those buildings now I think are probably worth about $110,000 a piece. So I could have held them, but the fact is I made more than $2 million since then from the money that I utilized from those sales. So that's how it goes. Sometimes you can buy one property, hold it 20 years, and found out you could have made more money on that one property than you did in all the deals that you flipped. I'll give you an example. I could have bought 171 acres for 171,000 with a house, and that property is worth about 100. I'm sorry, is worth about $17 million now. So sorry, I got a phone call that kicked us out. I hope video. It was 2 seconds. I don't know what it's going to do to our video. But back to the finishing up here. Yeah, that property I could have bought 171 acres for 171,000, 10% down with a house. But there were so many deals. I bought all kinds of stuff. But yeah, my wife will be screaming if I'm getting close to missing the flight. So we're okay. Thanks for the reminder. But I could have got it for 17 million. I'm sorry, I could have got it for 171,000. Now today, 20-something years later, it's worth 17 million. It's worth 100,000 an acre for sure, and it's probably covered with houses. I haven't seen it lately, but that 17 million, I'm not sure I've made 17 million in the last 20 years, but there's fun in flipping too, right? I have a lot more cash flow, but that would have been, I could have just bought that and just sat on that, but it would have been boring for all these years. But that one property would have made 17 million, just that one. And so but you never can get hurt turning, flipping things, and it's a lot more enjoyable, I think. And a lot, I don't want to know how much money I'm going to make in the next 20 years, to be honest. I like to think it's 100 million. I don't know, maybe it could be more. There really is no limitation, because once you get on a roll, it's pretty cool. I got into a deal, I was buying and selling lots for a while, and man, it was like every week I was turning and making, $10, $15, $20,000 a week. And then pretty soon I flipped one and, I made 300,000 in a note. And so, now I don't really want to work as hard. I enjoy what I do, but you know what? I'm going to come home. I'm going to hang out with my kids. I'm going to have a glass of wine and drink some beer with friends and cook and barbecue. Where, for a while there, in my early 20s, I almost didn't have a life, man. I was work all day, make the money, write letters and look for property, and I dreaded the weekends because people weren't working, and I wanted to make money still on the weekends. So I'd look, and people be disturbed by getting a phone call. Hey, you want to sell your property? And they, but you know what? When you're young, I tell you, I have no regrets. I gave up, probably a lot of fun time for a good section of life there for a few years, anyways, because I just buckled down, and all I did was care about was building my wealth, and so I sacrificed, but. In the end, when I'm done, I'm freer now probably than I could have ever been. So, you got to make those decisions for yourself. If you find that balance that works for you, I think I found mine now. Like I say, I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm trying to mentor and help other people. I don't get paid for this. This isn't any money to me. I'm probably actually creating competition. I know I got some people watching me that, potentially could go in and interrupt with my deals, but there goes a reminder on my flight, so I guess I am going to have to go here pretty soon. But so anyways, I'm going to cut it off here, but I'll be streaming in the next few days, and I'll probably do another, maybe I'll even do, maybe tonight I'll be by the beach, so maybe keep an eye out, and if I can figure out how to, give everybody notice in advance, I'll do it, and give you forewarning when we're going to stream. But it's going to be usually probably around 7 o'clock. Let's see, I take it back. I'll be in California, so that would make it. I guess I could. I can still make it about 7 o'clock Central Time. Yeah, that'd actually work. It'd be good light then too. So I'll try to do that, try to give everybody heads up when I am going to stream. But right now I'm kind of just doing it off the cuff, just because I don't have time to edit and mess with it too much. So anyways, that's it. If you got any questions, please throw them down in the comments below, and I'll utilize them in the next stream. So hey, everybody have a great few days ahead of you, or a week, and please subscribe and share, and make some money, and hopefully we'll all be living the life we want, right? So anyhow, that's it. Flip Anything USA, Tom. Not sure how to fit it. There we go.